5 years ago, they labeled her a lunatic and locked her away. Her younger sister stole her identity, her reputation, and the one clue connecting her to a desperate night with the city's most powerful man, Liu Fu. Now, she's back, as a substitute bride, married to the very man who holds the key to her past. To him, she's a foolish, unworthy wife. To her enemies, she's a disgraced woman easily crushed. They have no idea who they're dealing with. Beneath the mask of the docile bride is a queen of vengeance, a brilliant doctor with a mind like a steel trap and fists that can snap bones. She watches as her sister plays the part of the long-lost damsel, seducing her husband with her own stolen memories. He is cold, ruthless, and obsessed with finding the mystery woman he can't forget, never suspecting she's the wife he scorns. She is a phantom, using his power to dismantle the lives of those who wronged her, one by one. But when the lies shatter and he discovers the fool in his bed is the goddess he's been hunting, will their contract of convenience explode into a war that destroys them both? The air seemed to freeze for a few seconds. Leo looked at Cynthia's feigned, innocent face and finally placed the warm thumb ring back into her palm. He withdrew his hand, his voice returning to its usual low and distant tone. This ring resembles a personal item of a friend of mine. He once asked me to look for it. This answer made Stella's heart sink as she stood on the stairs, an inexplicable sense of loss washing over her. She had thought she would find the man so soon. This turn of events was unexpected, but also logical. 5 years ago, Liu Fu was still in the countryside. How could it have been him? Still, learning it belonged to his friend was good news. She just had to stay in the Fu family, and the truth would eventually come out. Cynthia, however, played the part of the naive girl to perfection. She carefully held the ring and asked with hopeful eyes, "Brother-in-law, can you take me to meet your friend? Maybe I'll remember something." Leo's eyes grew colder, and he didn't answer immediately. But Stella knew she had to use Cynthia as a pawn. She stepped out from the shadows of the staircase, a perfect smile on her lips. "Of course, I was just thinking my sister and I haven't had time to catch up." Cynthia was taken aback, not expecting Stella to make the offer herself. She thought Stella had gotten smarter, but it turned out she was still the same fool. She immediately smiled sweetly and agreed. "Okay." Leo glanced at his watch and said to Stella, "Let's go home." That word, home, stirred something in Stella's heart. How long had it been since she had heard that word? The convoy entered the South Bank estate. The moment Cynthia stepped into the Fu family's manor, she was stunned by the sheer luxury. It didn't feel like a home, but more like a heavily guarded castle. The lawns were meticulously manicured, and the fountains refracted the cold light of the setting sun. She sidled up to Leo, her voice sickly sweet. "Brother-in-law, you're in my sister's home is so big. When can I meet your friend?" Leo didn't even look at her, replying coolly, "He's abroad. I'll let him know." Just then, the snow wolf, Mastiff, came running happily, circling Leo affectionately. Cynthia let out a piercing scream and instinctively tried to hide behind Leo. The strong, pungent smell of her perfume made Leo's brow furrow, and he subconsciously distanced himself from her. A wolf. There's a wolf." Cynthia's screams continued. Mastiff hated jumpy humans. He bared his teeth, a threatening growl rumbling in his throat. Cynthia let out a piercing scream and instinctively tried to hide behind Leo. The strong, pungent smell of her perfume made Leo's brow furrow, and he subconsciously distanced himself from her. A wolf. There's a wolf." Cynthia's screams continued. Leo couldn't be bothered with her anymore. He turned and went into the study with Sean and Mastiff. The heavy oak door closed, and Sean spoke excitedly. "Mr. Fu, our hard work has finally paid off. We finally found." "It's not her." Leo's icy voice cut him off, a barely perceptible killing intent lacing his words. Sean was stunned. "How can you be so sure? Doesn't she have your token?" Leo took off his watch, loosened his tie, and leaned casually on the sofa. His long fingers stroked Mastiff's soft fur, his dark eyes filled with frost. "Keep an eye on Cynthia Gu. She's definitely connected to what happened back then." For years, finding the woman from 5 years ago had become his sole obsession. Leo took off his watch, loosened his tie, and leaned casually on the sofa. His long fingers stroked Mastiff's soft fur, his dark eyes filled with frost. "Keep an eye on Cynthia Gu. She's definitely connected to what happened back then." For years, finding the woman from 5 years ago had become his sole obsession. Meanwhile, Stella led the terrified Cynthia to a guest room. The moment Cynthia entered, she breathed a sigh of relief and began fantasizing about her bright future. "Sister, this place is so beautiful. I never thought my suggestion would allow you to escape your misery with a new identity." The moment Cynthia entered, she breathed a sigh of relief and began fantasizing about her bright future. "Sister, this place is so beautiful. I never thought my suggestion would allow you to escape your misery with a new identity." Stella smiled, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. "Should I thank you properly then?" Cynthia froze, turning to meet a pair of bone-chillingly cold eyes. She realized the gentle expression on Stella's face was gone, replaced by an endless frost, like a sharpened blade. "Sister, that's not what I meant." Cynthia froze, turning to meet a pair of bone-chillingly cold eyes. She realized the gentle expression on Stella's face was gone, replaced by an endless frost, like a sharpened blade. Sister, that's not what I meant. Stella advanced on her, step by step. Her heels were silent on the wool carpet, but they carried an immense pressure. Her voice sounded as if it came from hell. Cynthia Gu, 5 years ago, you were the mastermind, weren't you? Cynthia panicked. The Stella before her now was like a vengeful spirit coming to claim a debt. After that incident, I found a type of powder in your room. Cynthia panicked. The Stella before her now was like a vengeful spirit coming to claim a debt. After that incident, I found a type of powder in your room. Stella's voice was quiet, but each word was a hammer blow. I had it tested. It was a potent aphrodisiac called Mirage. Once ingested, it clouds the mind and can only be cured through sexual release. Identical to the drug I was given that night. What else do you have to say for yourself? No, that was just my. A sharp slap echoed through the room, cutting off her explanation. This was the second time. Cynthia glared at her, furious. You hit me again? I did. Cynthia glared at her, furious. You hit me again? I did. Stella grabbed the necklace around her neck, yanking her forward. The ferocity in her eyes threatened to swallow her whole. Since you're so eager to test the waters and help me find the man from that night, I'll grant you your wish. Let's see, when his friend arrives and your lies are exposed, what do you think will become of your life? Cynthia looked at her completely transformed sister in shock. You're using me. Stella sneered, shoving her away like a piece of trash. Such an ugly way to put it. Weren't you the one who willingly walked right into my hands to be used? With that, she turned and left, leaving Cynthia collapsed on the floor, cold and trembling. Stella sneered, shoving her away like a piece of trash. Such an ugly way to put it. Weren't you the one who willingly walked right into my hands to be used? With that, she turned and left, leaving Cynthia collapsed on the floor, cold and trembling. Stella left the guest room and returned to the master bedroom. In the evening, she went for a walk in the garden. The oppressive mansion suffocated her. When she returned, she found the living room in chaos. The maids were frantically searching for something, their faces anxious. The maids were frantically searching for something, their faces anxious. A maid stopped her. Young Mrs. Fu, Miss Zhang has lost a memento from her late mother. It's a sapphire necklace. Have you seen it? Stella shook her head coolly. No. Just then, a woman in a simple, elegant dress with a gentle face came down the stairs. It was Ivy. Her eyes were red-rimmed, but she spoke up first to defend Stella. Sister-in-law just arrived. How would she know where things are kept in the house? Just then, a woman in a simple, elegant dress with a gentle face came down the stairs. It was Ivy. Her eyes were red-rimmed, but she spoke up first to defend Stella. Sister-in-law just arrived. How would she know where things are kept in the house? Then she murmured to herself, full of worry. That's the only thing my mother left me. What will I do if it's lost? Stella didn't reply and went straight back to her room. She pushed the door open, about to enter, but her footsteps stopped abruptly. She lowered her gaze to the soft feather rug at the doorway. On the rug was a very faint indentation, slightly different from its position when she had left. It was the outline of a shoe print, about a size 38, definitely not hers. Someone had secretly entered her room while she was away. Her beautiful eyes suddenly darkened. On the soft feather rug, a clear indentation caught Stella's eye. The shoe print was a size 38, while she wore a 36. It certainly couldn't be the tall Liu Fu. A cold arc formed on her lips. So, they were starting to play these petty tricks with her. Fine. She would play along. She nonchalantly walked around the rug, moved the piece of evidence to a corner, then sat down on the sofa, lazily flipping through a medical book, quietly waiting for the show to begin. Sure enough, it wasn't long before a clamor of footsteps and hushed arguments could be heard outside, culminating in a few restrained knocks on the door. Stella didn't look up, feigning ignorance as she asked coolly, "What is it?" Outside, the maid, Jenna, put on a polite voice. "Young Mrs. Fu, we're here to look for Miss Zhang's lost memento. We're sorry to disturb you, but could you please open the door?" Outside, the maid, Jenna, put on a polite voice. "Young Mrs. Fu, we're here to look for Miss Zhang's lost memento. We're sorry to disturb you, but could you please open the door?" Stella raised an eyebrow slightly, a polite prelude to an attack. She closed her book. Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried clearly through the door. "This is Mr. Fu's room. Are you sure you want to search his belongings?" She knew full well that Leo's room was a forbidden zone in the Fu household. "It's the only room left to search. We're just following procedure. Please don't make things difficult for us, young Mrs. Fu." This was exactly what Stella was waiting for. She walked to the door and yanked it open. Jenna and the others were about to surge in, but were stopped by her outstretched arm. Her beautiful eyes stared at Jenna, cold and unblinking. "When did I give you permission to enter?" "But, only Mrs. Fu and I are allowed in the young master's room." Stella interrupted her smoothly, her words like daggers. "You want to search? Do you think the young master covets Miss Zhang's things? Or that Mrs. Fu does? Or perhaps you think I stole it?" Jenna's heart skipped a beat. She quickly distanced herself. Of course it couldn't be the young master or Mrs. Fu. Oh, so it was me. Stella's relentless questioning, filled with an invisible pressure, left Jenna speechless. Nonsense. A stern, aged voice cut in. Ivy was helping Mrs. Fu over, having clearly heard the entire exchange. The old woman's face was stern as she questioned the maids. What are you doing here? Jenna immediately tattled. Mrs. Fu, this is the only room left, but young Mrs. Fu won't let us in. Mrs. Fu's brow furrowed, but when she turned to Stella, her eyes were filled with unwavering trust. She announced loudly to everyone. I heard everything. This entire Fu family belongs to my granddaughter-in-law. Forget one necklace. Even 1,000 or 10,000 of them wouldn't be worth her notice. Her words were like a hammer blow, making Ivy's breath catch and the gentle expression on her face freeze for a second. Stella was also stunned for a moment, a wave of warmth flowing through her. She never expected the old woman to trust her so completely. Ivy quickly regained her composure and said gently, Grandma, don't be angry. From what Jenna said, someone must be spreading rumors about sister-in-law behind her back. We should find the gossip monger to restore order in the house and protect sister-in-law's reputation. The stage was set, and the actors were in place. Stella glanced at them coolly and spoke up. Since it's for my reputation, Jenna, why don't you tell us who's been talking behind my back and what they said? Stella glanced at them coolly and spoke up. Since it's for my reputation, Jenna, why don't you tell us who's been talking behind my back and what they said? Jenna was secretly pleased, thinking the fool was walking right into her trap. She feigned difficulty. They were saying that young Mrs. Fu. What did they say? Mrs. Fu urged impatiently. Jenna immediately spilled the beans. It was Zoe. She said when she was going to clean Miss John's room, she saw young Mrs. Fu sneaking out, and it looked like she was holding something. That's why we came to search. As she finished, gasps rippled through the maids gathered in the hallway. Their gazes towards Stella instantly filled with contempt and disdain. Soon, a frightened-looking Zoe was brought over. The moment she arrived, she looked at Stella with a pained expression. Young Mrs. Fu, you have everything you could ever want now. That necklace was a memento from Miss John's mother. It means the world to her. Please, just give it back. She bit her lip, looking righteous. Even in court, I would say the same thing. I saw it with my own eyes. I can't go against my conscience. Ivy sighed at the perfect moment and said to Mrs. Fu, Grandma, I believe sister-in-law has nothing to hide. To clear her name, why don't we let them search the room? The old woman hesitated, feeling it was unfair to her granddaughter-in-law. But Stella's lips curved into a sly smile, and she cut in. All right, I was thinking the same thing. But Stella's lips curved into a sly smile, and she cut in. All right, I was thinking the same thing. Mrs. Fu took her hand and patted it gently. Stella, dear, I'm sorry you have to go through this. It's fine. Stella shook her head and stepped aside. Jenna and Zoe immediately rushed in with the other maids, heading straight for Stella's suitcase. They rummaged through it roughly and impatiently. It's fine. Stella shook her head and stepped aside. Jenna and Zoe immediately rushed in with the other maids, heading straight for Stella's suitcase. They rummaged through it roughly and impatiently. Jenna and Zoe immediately rushed in with the other maids, heading straight for Stella's suitcase. They rummaged through it roughly and impatiently. A few minutes later, Jenna let out an exaggerated gasp. Oh my God, the necklace is really here. She held up a platinum necklace with a deep blue gem that glittered under the light. The hallway fell silent. Mrs. Fu was stunned. Ivy rushed forward, snatched the necklace, and clutched it to her chest, her eyes instantly reddening. Thank goodness it's found, it's found. A few minutes later, Jenna let out an exaggerated gasp. Oh my God, the necklace is really here. She held up a platinum necklace with a deep blue gem that glittered under the light. The hallway fell silent. Mrs. Fu was stunned. Ivy rushed forward, snatched the necklace, and clutched it to her chest, her eyes instantly reddening. Thank goodness it's found, it's found. Ivy rushed forward, snatched the necklace, and clutched it to her chest, her eyes instantly reddening. Thank goodness it's found, it's found. With both a witness and physical evidence, the hushed whispers in the hallway could no longer be contained. She's from a common family. You can never get rid of those bad habits. A country bumpkin, completely unworthy of the young master. Silence. Mrs. Fu's roar was authoritative and startling. Everyone immediately quieted down, their eyes fixed on Stella, the center of the storm. Yet, she just leaned lazily against the doorframe, toying with a lock of her hair, not even bothering to lift her eyelids. It was as if this whole farce had nothing to do with her. She was merely an outsider. Ivy wiped her tears and warned the maids outside. No one is to speak of what happened today. If you do, pack your things and leave. With that, she turned to close the door, putting on an act of magnanimity, as if trying to keep a family scandal private. Heh, a very soft, yet chilling laugh made Ivy's hand freeze in midair. She turned back, asking with confusion, Sister-in-law, what are you laughing at? Stella finally lifted her eyes. Her beautiful fox-like eyes now held only cold mockery. She walked forward step by step, her voice quiet, but every word crystal clear. First, you warn the outsiders not to air our dirty laundry. Then you close the door to settle the matter. What is it, Miss Jiang? Have you already decided that I'm the thief? Zoe immediately jumped in. The necklace was found in your suitcase. If you didn't steal it, did it grow legs and walk there itself? Stella shot her a cold glance, her gaze finally settling on Ivy. She asked word by word, what a joke. I didn't steal anything. Why should I accept this favor from you? At her words, everyone froze. A flicker of panic crossed Ivy's face, but it was quickly masked by a look of grievance. Sister-in-law would never steal my things. There must be some misunderstanding. There is no misunderstanding. Stella's voice was laced with a chill. Someone did steal something, but they conveniently planted it in my suitcase. She walked to the corner and carefully picked up the velvet rug, placing it in front of everyone. In the center of the rug was a clear shoe print, the tread pattern perfectly visible. Stella sat back down, crossing her legs comfortably, and snapped her fingers. Ladies, come and try it on. She explained she had an alibi, and had the butler pull up the garden surveillance footage to prove it. And so, a thief hunt turned into a shoe print trial. The young maids who were over 5'5" were called forward, and after comparing their shoe soles, they were cleared of suspicion and left with relief. Stella's gaze slowly, deliberately, fell on Zoe and Jenna. Her eyes were dark and cold. Well now, aren't there two who haven't been compared yet? The two maids turned pale, all their previous bravado gone. Butler Yi, under orders, had men come forward. Ignoring their struggles, they pulled off their shoes. When the comparison was made, the truth was revealed. Butler Yi announced loudly, Mrs. Fu, young Mrs. Fu, this shoe print belongs to Zoe. Zoe collapsed to the floor. When Stella asked who had put her up to it, she gritted her teeth and pointed viciously at Stella. Because I hate her. I've taken care of the young master for 7 years. I should be the young Mrs. Fu. Furious, Mrs. Fu slammed her hand on the coffee table and immediately ordered that Zoe, the instigator Jenna, and all the gossiping maids be thrown out. The farce was over. As Ivy was about to help Mrs. Fu leave, Stella stopped her. Wait a minute. She smiled faintly, but her voice had turned cold. A moment ago, Miss Jiang also concluded that I was the thief, didn't you? Ivy's heart jumped. She quickly apologized, blaming it all on being overly concerned and too quick to trust Zoe, whom she had known for years. After listening, Stella suddenly laughed, a smile full of hidden meaning. Miss Jiang, what are you saying? Thanks to your insistence on searching the room for the necklace, you helped me find justice. Ivy's face changed colors several times, and for a moment, she was speechless. Mrs. Fu gave Ivy a thoughtful look, but said no more, only kindly telling Stella to get some rest. But the moment she turned away, the kindness on her face froze over. Back in her room, the old woman remembered something and suddenly asked Ivy. I saw a quilt on the sofa in Stella's room. Are Leo and Stella sleeping separately? Ivy's hand trembled slightly. Perhaps. Leo doesn't like sister-in-law yet. How dare he? Mrs. Fu's anger flared, and she stood up, full of energy. Stella is so wonderful. How dare he not like her? Unacceptable. Mrs. Fu's anger, like a lit fuse, quickly reached Leo Fu. The moment he answered the phone, the old woman roared. You brat, you're making my granddaughter-in-law sleep on the sofa. Listen to me. I don't care how busy you are. You will come home tonight and get to work on giving me 2 grandchildren in 3 years. With that, she hung up without waiting for a reply, leaving Ivy on the side, thoughtfully biting her lip. That night, only a dim floor lamp was on in the bedroom, casting a hazy glow. Stella, fresh from her shower and smelling faintly of soap, was putting away her medical book and preparing to curl up on the sofa when the door clicked open. She looked up instinctively and met a pair of eyes so deep they could swallow a person's soul. Leo Fu was back. He carried the chill of the night and the faint scent of tobacco. He loosened his tie and strode towards her with purpose. The powerful, oppressive aura washed over her, making her take 2 steps back until her back hit the cold wall. In the next second, Leo grabbed her by the waist, lifted her horizontally, and pressed her down onto the soft sofa. Leo Fu, you, Stella cried out. Shoo. Leo's palm covered her lips, warm and forceful, not allowing her to make a sound. He leaned down, his hot breath ghosting across her ear. In the dim light, his deep eyes seemed to swirl like vortexes. In a low voice only they could hear, he asked, Do you know how to scream? Stella's eyes were filled with confusion. Suddenly, the finger on her lips rubbed against them, then squeezed with a firm pressure. Stella yelped in pain, a short cry escaping her lips involuntarily. The man's long, narrow eyes squinted, a cryptic smile playing on his lips. That's it. MMPH. She struggled to push him away, but the moment her palm touched his firm chest, the searing heat made her breath catch. Through the thin shirt, she could feel his strong, steady heartbeat. She snatched her hand back. Leo studied her with amusement. Her flushed cheeks, the unwilling anger in her eyes. She was like a cornered cat, annoyed but helpless. His Adam's apple bobbed. His large hand gripped her slender waist again, pressing his body down even closer. Leo Fu. Stella stared at him in alarm, her other hand instinctively reaching for the silver needles hidden at her waist. But Leo had already anticipated her move. He caught her wrist, pinning both her hands above her head against the back of the sofa. He raised a handsome eyebrow, his voice laced with mockery. It seems your needles can also take a life. Just then, Stella's sharp ears caught the faint sound of muttering from outside the door. Be quiet. Let me listen carefully and see if the job is done. It was the old woman. Stella understood instantly. Leo was putting on a show. Only after the footsteps outside had left, seemingly satisfied, did Leo release her and sit up. There was not a trace of desire in his eyes. He crossed his long legs, his posture relaxed yet noble, and slowly straightened his slightly ruffled cuffs. Then, he lit a cigarette. The curling smoke blurred his handsome face. Stella sat up, her breathing still a bit ragged, her heart not yet calm. Suddenly, he spoke, his low, sexy voice tinged with amusement. Do you like to tattle? Mr. Fu, at your age, you shouldn't speak rashly about things you haven't seen or heard with your own eyes and ears. Stella glanced at him wearily and picked up the blanket from the sofa, her tone annoyed. Your condition isn't suited for staying up late. She deliberately provoked him. As expected, Leo's hand, flicking the ash from his cigarette, paused. She took a deep breath and decided to lay her cards on the table. Mr. Fu, let's sign an agreement. She took a pre-prepared contract from her suitcase and handed it to him, her bright eyes curving into crescents. I know you don't like me, and I don't want to make things difficult for you. A contract marriage, for 1 year. In name only, with no interference in each other's lives. Leo took the contract and scanned it quickly. Stella immediately offered him a pen, expecting him to sign his name with a flourish, like a domineering CEO from a novel. However, the man didn't take the pen. Instead, he took the contract in both hands and ripped it neatly down the middle. With a sharp tear, the paper became 2 pieces, then 4, and finally a flurry of scraps that he tossed into the trash can. Stella stared at him, utterly bewildered. Don't bring this up again. Leo looked down at her, a hint of contempt in his eyes. Just be a proper young Mrs. Fu. When the time is right, I will let you leave. He wouldn't let her go until he found the woman from 5 years ago. Stella sensed the dark undercurrent in his eyes and decided to change the subject. My sister wants to know when the owner of that thumb ring will be back. Leo walked towards the bathroom, his voice unhurried. He has a project in City A. He'll be back when it's done. Just then, Stella's phone screen lit up. An encrypted text message appeared. Someone is offering a high price for a job. She immediately replied. How high? 1 billion. Stella's heart skipped a beat. What's the job? The reply came quickly. Investigate the reason why the Gu family's second daughter, Stella Gu, was admitted to a psychiatric hospital 5 years ago, and all information on the third daughter, Cynthia Gu. Stella glanced at the closed bathroom door. Was it Leo, or his friend? Whoever it was, this was easy money she couldn't pass up. An investigation into herself meant she could write the narrative. She replied quickly. Tell him I'll have the information for him tomorrow. The door to the study was gently pushed open, breaking the silence within. Without pausing, Leo Fu closed the file in his hands and locked it in a drawer with a soft click. He looked up, his gaze falling on Stella at the door. She was holding a glass of milk, a bright, obedient smile on her face. Her beautiful fox-like eyes were curved, but the light within them was as clear and cold as a lake on an autumn morning. This image was a world away from the woman whose eyes had been filled with bold, deadly resolve when facing the snow wolf, Mastiff. It made sense, Leo thought. A woman who dared to stab someone wouldn't be afraid of a wolf. Stella walked in gracefully and placed the warm milk on his desk, her voice soft. Grandma said you didn't eat much this morning, so she asked me to bring you some milk for your stomach. Seeing that she wasn't leaving, Leo frowned slightly. Is there something else? Yes, Stella nodded frankly. I'm going to the university for a bit. I wanted to let you know. Leo's gaze sharpened instantly. He stared at her, his voice low and cold. As I recall, Mrs. Fu dropped out of school 5 years ago. What university are you talking about? I dropped out, but the school is still there. She knew that for a man, dignity was everything. If he was the one investigating her, seeing the report about her first love, Julian Jiang, should have elicited some reaction. However, not a ripple of emotion crossed Leo's chiseled face. He simply took another file from the bookshelf and asked coolly, Do you need Butler Yi to arrange a car for you? Yes, please. Stella turned and left. It seemed it wasn't him. After she was gone, Sean dared to cautiously remind him. Mr. Fu, she isn't going to see that Julian Jiang, is she? According to the report, young Mrs. Fu suffered a lot for that man. The fingers flipping through the file paused. Leo looked up abruptly, his deep eyes sweeping over Sean. What does this have to do with you? A chill shot up from Sean's feet. He quickly rubbed his nose and didn't dare say another word. The Tylers at the East Pavilion Lake are short-handed. Go help them. Sean was dumbfounded. That was manual labor. He was about to plead for mercy when Leo cut him off with an even more heartless command. While you're at it, clean all the toilets in the South Bank estate. Yes, sir. Sean accepted his fate, on the verge of tears. As he turned to leave, Leo's voice sounded again. Have someone follow her. On the Binching University campus, sunlight filtered through the dense plane trees, dappling the ground. Young men played basketball with youthful energy. Stella walked along the tree-lined path. Everything was different from 5 years ago, yet the familiar scent of books and fresh grass remained the same. Her target today was clear: Tiffany Leong. Tiffany had also been there that night 5 years ago. She had to know something. And Stella was certain that as Julian Zhang's #1 fan, Tiffany would be here today for the preparations for his speech. What she didn't expect was to run into Cynthia first. Cynthia was arm in arm with her best friend, Mandy Shun. Seeing Stella, she put on a pained expression. Sister, it seems you still can't get over Julian. After all these years, you're still thinking about him. Only you would treasure a man with no brains, Stella replied coolly. Cynthia's friend Mandy exploded, pointing at Stella. Who do you think you are? A lunatic who was expelled from school. You're not welcome here, get out. The argument quickly drew a crowd. Seeing this, Mandy started her performance, bursting into tears. You used to be a student here. How can you be so arrogant and violent? In an instant, all eyes were on Stella, full of accusation. A security guard arrived, his eyes filled with contempt. Miss Gu, this is a school, not a marketplace. Please leave immediately. Stella glanced at her watch, not even bothering to look up. I'm here to pick up a certificate. A certificate? Cynthia laughed out loud, as if she had heard the world's funniest joke. Sister, did you spend too much time in the hospital? Did it fry your brain? You're a dropout. What certificate could you possibly have? The crowd erupted in laughter. Mandy proudly began to praise Cynthia, talking about her first-place piano skills and excellent grades, contrasting her with Stella, the country bumpkin and lunatic. Cynthia walked over to her, took her hand, and said with feigned concern, Sister, if you really want a diploma, I can ask the principal to let you start over as a freshman. She's 22 and still a freshman? How embarrassing. Mandy's mockery drew another wave of laughter. Stella glanced at her watch again. She lowered her hand and raised her eyes, her cold gaze sweeping over the gloating faces. A sarcastic smile slowly formed on her lips. No need. I've already obtained my postdoctoral certificate. The laughter grew louder. Everyone now saw her as a completely insane clown. Just then, a cold, stern voice cut through the noise. This is a place of learning. Instead of quiet study, what are you all laughing at? It was the principal's assistant, Mr. Chiao. Everyone's expression changed, and they greeted him respectfully. Mandy immediately ran over to tattle. Mr. Chiao, this Stella Gu is causing trouble at our school. However, Mr. Chiao ignored her completely and walked straight to Stella. His voice was humble, almost reverent. Miss Gu, the principal would like to see you in his office. In an instant, the crowd fell silent. The smiles froze on their faces. Cynthia's mind went blank. She squeezed out a few words. Mr. Chiao, are you mistaken? In any case, she is your senior, Mr. Chiao said sternly. Stella didn't want to stay a second longer. She said to Mr. Chiao, let's go. We shouldn't keep the principal waiting. Under the shocked, bewildered, and incredulous gazes of the crowd, Stella calmly followed Mr. Chiao away. Not long after she left, the campus broadcast system crackled to life, a cold female voice echoing in every corner. Today, student Mandy Shin instigated a disturbance on campus, causing a public spectacle and creating a negative influence. A campus-wide criticism is now issued. Mandy's face turned green, then white. She had become the laughingstock of the entire school. After leaving the principal's office, Stella went directly to the auditorium where preparations for the event were underway. She spotted a familiar figure at once, Tiffany Leong. Tiffany saw her too. Her face turned pale with fright, and she immediately tried to run. Stella closed the distance in a few steps and grabbed her by the wrist, her gaze as cold as freshly formed ice. She raised an eyebrow slightly, her voice low, but it made Tiffany tremble. Tiffany, long time no see. On the grass by the basketball court, the sun was bright, but it couldn't warm the icy air between the two of them. Tiffany Leong stood there, her body stiff, her eyes vacant. Even after reconstructive surgery, her face remained unnaturally rigid, the muscles pulled by invisible threads, no longer capable of the lively expressions of 5 years ago. Stella looked at her, a flicker of sorrow in her heart, quickly replaced by indifference. She got straight to the point. You don't have to be so afraid of me. Back then, you invited me over without knowing the full story. In the end, we were both victims. Tiffany was stunned, her eyes welling up with emotion. 5 years ago, they had been the best of friends, until a man named Julian Jiang appeared, and their friendship shattered like fine porcelain. Driven by jealousy and Cynthia Gu's provocations, she had broken off with Stella. Later, heartbroken and drunk, she was disfigured by a group of young delinquents. Everyone told her to call the police and accuse Stella, but she didn't believe it. Stella, Tiffany instinctively started to use her old nickname. Don't call me that. Stella cut her off coolly. The bond between us was severed the moment you drugged me. Tiffany's eyes dimmed, and she mumbled an explanation. I just wanted to know if you were the one who hurt me, so I drugged you to take some pictures and force the truth out of you. I didn't expect what happened next. Stella closed her eyes. The pitch-black room was a nightmare that had haunted her for 5 years. She didn't want to get tangled in emotions anymore. She got to the point. What happened after I passed out? Tiffany's face turned deathly pale. Even after 5 years, the terror of that night could still grip her easily. I was about to take pictures of you when a group of people burst in and took you away. I chased after them, but was stopped by a woman. A woman? Stella's breath caught. Yes, Tiffany nodded. She deliberately kept her head down so no one could see her face, but when she got into the elevator, I caught a glimpse of her profile. She was about 35 or 36 then, so she'd be around 40 now. A middle-aged woman with a mole on her forehead. Stella had no memory of such a person. She had always thought it was a man who had put her in that room. Even Cynthia probably only knew one part of the story. Do you remember who was behind your disfigurement? Stella asked again. A deep-seated hatred surfaced in Tiffany's eyes. They only caught one of the girls. She said a man told them to do it. Stella stood up, patting the grass from her clothes. She looked down at her voice lazy but with a bone-chilling coldness. The whole time, from start to finish, did it never occur to you to suspect Cynthia Gu? Your sister? Tiffany exclaimed in surprise. Impossible. After you were taken away, she cried so hard she couldn't breathe and even fainted. Stella didn't explain. She simply stated the facts in a cold, clinical tone, carving the truth into Tiffany's heart. The information was too much for Tiffany to process. Her mind went blank. She was just a young girl back then. The thought made her shiver. Stella watched her reaction, knowing the time was right. She turned to leave, leaving behind only a cold sentence. When I was in the hospital, I received the letter you wrote me. Tiffany stared blankly at her retreating back, her world in turmoil. She knew Stella. If she wasn't 100% sure, she would never have said such things. What had she done all these years? She had channeled all her guilt over what happened to Stella into taking care of Cynthia. She had been played for a fool all this time. Cynthia? Goo. Each word was squeezed through clenched teeth, laced with visceral hatred. Though Stella was already far away, she could still feel that raw emotion. She had waited 5 years for this seed of hatred to take root in Tiffany's heart. Just as she left the campus, Stella's phone rang. It was an unknown number. It's me. On the other end was Leo Fu's deep voice. Mr. Fu, what's wrong? It's Mrs. Shen's birthday banquet. I've sent Sean to pick you up. She and Grandma were high school classmates. Grandma can't make it. Stella understood. This was a social obligation she had to fulfill as the young Mrs. Fu. Half an hour later, she was in Sean's car, arriving at the Shun family's grand residence on the mountainside. Though not as opulent as the Fu estate, it was still magnificent. The living room was brightly lit, filled with glamorous guests, yet no one came to greet her. The outside world was still unaware of her existence as the substitute bride. She scanned the room and immediately spotted Cynthia in a corner, chatting happily with a man. That man was Julian Jiang, a famous gentleman in Bincheng, with an excellent family background, education, and looks, the dream lover of countless young girls. So, this was the root of the conflict that had led to her and Tiffany's mutual destruction. Just then, Mandy Shin approached with a glass of champagne, her arrogance from earlier replaced by a sweet smile. Stella, please forgive us for any lack of hospitality. Stella subtly pulled her hand away from Mandy's grasp. An unsolicited kindness is either a trick or a trap. Sure enough, Cynthia also walked over with Julian, calling out sweetly, Sister. Stella nodded coolly, her eyes meeting Julian's. He looked as if he had just swallowed a fly, unpleasantly averting his gaze. Sister, do you remember Julian? He took great care of me all those years you were in the hospital. Cynthia's performance was flawless. Julian seemed unable to stand the atmosphere and made an excuse to go to the balcony for a smoke. Cynthia immediately followed him, sidling up to him and saying in a soft, apologetic tone, Julian, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to tell my sister you would be here tonight. With one sentence, she had effortlessly painted Stella as a woman who was relentlessly pursuing him. The night wind on the balcony was cool, but it couldn't dissipate the irritation in Julian Zhang's heart. He took a sharp drag from his cigarette, the acrid smoke filling his lungs before he slowly exhaled, shrouding his handsome face in a hazy cloud. Cynthia's tearful complaints were still ringing in his ears, but his mind was filled with the image of the Stella Gu from 5 years ago. He had once had a fleetingly good impression of her, but everything that happened afterward had completely shattered his perception. She went around telling everyone she was his girlfriend-to-be, bullying others in his name, and even writing him explicit love letters asking him to meet her at a hotel. It had been 5 years. He thought she would have come to her senses by now, but she was still haunting him. All right, don't blame yourself for someone else's mistakes. Julian stubbed out his cigarette and pulled the sobbing Cynthia into his arms, comforting her gently. He couldn't see the flash of cold triumph in Cynthia's eyes as she buried her face in his chest. As long as Julian still believed her, as long as he didn't dig into the past, she was safe. Until she had truly secured her position with the powerhouse that was Leo Fu, she couldn't afford to lose Julian, this solid pillar of support. Back in the brightly lit hall, Cynthia saw Mandy Shin still engaging in fake pleasantries with Stella. She smiled and walked over. "Mandy, didn't you say you were going to give us dresses as a gift?" Mandy immediately understood and enthusiastically led them both to her bedroom. The room was decorated in a cold, pure white style, reflecting its owner's aloof nature. Mandy took out 3 dresses from her wardrobe, handing one to Stella and another to Cynthia. Stella took the light blue dress. Her fingertips touched the silky fabric, but her nose caught a faint, almost imperceptible, yet unusually sweet scent. Her breath caught, and her brow furrowed slightly. The smell was all too familiar. It was passion powder, a vicious substance that could make a person's skin burn and their mind become clouded within 10 minutes, ultimately leading them to strip naked in public. Cynthia still resorted to such lowbrow tricks. Mandy changed into her own dress and happily twirled in front of them. Seeing Stella only give a cool she assumed she had been completely fooled and felt even more smug. She urged, "Sister, you should hurry and change too." "All right." Stella took the dress and walked into the dressing room. She shook the dress vigorously in the air, and a colorless powder fell like dust. Then, she pulled out a row of silver needles, as fine as ox hair, which glinted under the light. With precise and swift movements, she inserted several needles into pressure points on her arms and the back of her neck, blocking the pathways through which the drug could take effect. Only after doing all this did she slowly put on the booby-trap dress. When she came out, Cynthia and Mandy, who had been complimenting each other, fell silent. Their eyes held undisguised shock and jealousy. They had deliberately chosen the most plain-looking dress, but on Stella, it seemed to come alive. It was a strapless, waist-cinching, light blue gown. The silky fabric perfectly outlined her well-proportioned figure, her long swan-like neck, and her delicate collarbones, which gleamed under the light. The hem was short in the front and long in the back, revealing a pair of slender, straight calves, her skin so fair it was dazzling. But what was most captivating were her eyes, clear with a hint of lazy charm, as if a cunning little fox lived within them. A single glance could steal one's soul. This version of Stella was breathtakingly beautiful, and it ignited the darkest fires of jealousy in Cynthia's heart. She clenched her hands, her nails digging deep into her palms. She had ruined her 5 years ago, and she wouldn't fail now. Tonight, she would make Stella strip in front of all the city's elite and see if Leo Fu still wanted this shameless woman. Mandy also came to her senses and took her hand, feigning admiration. "Sister, you look so beautiful." At the same time, she subtly guided Stella towards the vanity. "But your eye makeup is a bit light. Let me touch it up for you." "Okay." Stella sat down, a sly glint in her eyes. She let Mandy apply makeup to her face. When she was done, Stella spoke gently. "Mandy, you're beautiful too, but your eye makeup is too plain. Why don't you try my color? It would better accentuate your charm." Stella picked up an eyeshadow palette and gave Mandy a vibrant eye look, finishing with a bold red lip. The Mandy in the mirror was instantly more glamorous. She pursed her lips in satisfaction, secretly counting down the minutes. The drug was about to take effect. The 3 of them went downstairs together. Stella walked in front, her eyes lowered elegantly. Behind her, Mandy had a smirk on her face, completely oblivious to the slight upward curve of Stella's lips. The moment Stella appeared at the top of the stairs, she captured the attention of everyone in the hall. She was like a fairy under the moonlight, each step graceful, her beauty otherworldly. Even the usually arrogant Julian Jiang was stunned. Mandy was stung by the starkly different reception. Seeing that the 10 minutes were almost up, a vicious look flashed in her eyes. She decided to add more fuel to the fire. She quickened her pace and deliberately stepped on the long train of Stella's dress, planning to make her fall flat on her face in front of everyone. Crash! A loud noise, accompanied by a woman's scream, shattered the harmony of the banquet hall. However, the one who fell was not Stella. The instant Mandy stepped on the dress, Stella, as if she had eyes in the back of her head, didn't stop walking. She simply pulled her trapped train forward with force. Mandy lost her balance and tumbled down the middle of the staircase without warning. What was even more horrifying was that as she rolled, her beautiful dress, like cheap fabric, tore to shreds, scattering everywhere. Her body was left completely exposed under hundreds of gazes, with a few ambiguous marks still visible on her fair skin. The entire room gasped. Wasn't the eldest Miss Shin supposed to be single? Stella stood on the stairs, looking down at the scene, her eyes cold. These whispers were her return gift to Mandy. If she hadn't smelled something off about the dress, she would be the one being judged right now. Beside them, Cynthia's face was deathly pale, her body trembling uncontrollably. Why? Why did it happen like this? Stella was completely unharmed. She met Stella's gaze. Her eyes were calm, but her lips held a faint, mocking smile, as if to say without words, This is what happens when you mess with me. Just then, the two main figures of the evening emerged from a side hall. Mrs. Shun and her eldest son, Mr. Shun, Mandy's father. They looked at the chaotic scene before them, their faces instantly turning ashen. The festive air in the banquet hall seemed to be sucked out in an instant, solidifying into a block of cold amber, preserving everyone's shock, bewilderment, and contempt. The color drained from Mrs. Shun's face. Her proud composure shattered at the sight of her granddaughter's naked body. Her hand trembled as she pointed at the disheveled Mandy on the floor, a strangled sound escaping her throat, unable to form a single word. Mr. Shun, the head of the Shun family, was also completely stunned. His face turned a deep shade of purple, the flames of anger and shame burning in his eyes, making him look like a lion about to charge. Overcome with rage, Mrs. Shun clutched her forehead and swayed. If a nearby waiter hadn't caught her, she might have fainted on the spot. On the floor, Mandy's nearly broken emotions finally found an outlet when she saw her father. She cried as she tried to gather the tattered pieces of fabric, but her panic only made her look more pathetic. The friends who usually flocked around her now stood at a distance, as if avoiding a plague. Even Cynthia instinctively took a step back, silently hiding behind Julian Jiang, terrified of being photographed and labeled as Mandy Shun's best friend. "What are you standing there for? Haven't you embarrassed us enough?" Mrs. Shun roared at her son, having regained her senses. Mr. Shun finally moved. He strode forward, took off his expensive suit jacket, and threw it over his daughter. Mandy clung to it like a lifeline, crying, "Dad!" Slap! Mr. Shun's hand swung with immense force, landing squarely on his daughter's face. The crisp sound echoed through the hall, more piercing than any music. "Look what you've done." The slap seemed to snap Mandy back to reality. Her body was covered, and she regained a final shred of reason. She looked up, her tear-streaked face full of venom, and cried out pitifully, "Dad, don't hit me. Someone set me up. It was Stella Gu. She did this to me." At her words, the hall fell silent again. All eyes turned to the stunning woman who had been watching coolly from the stairs the entire time. Stella's expression was unruffled. She had simply returned the favor. It seemed Mandy was planning to use her as a tool to clear her own name. In the corner, Cynthia saw her chance and whispered in Julian Zhang's ear, adding fuel to the fire. "Julian, my sister did like Mandy's dress earlier and wanted to wear it, but it wasn't her size. Maybe that's why Mandy misunderstood. My sister didn't mean any harm." Julian's face grew even colder, his gaze toward Stella filled with nothing but deep disgust. He couldn't believe that after 5 years, this woman was still so clueless. For him, she had ruined Tiffany Liang's face. Now, over a dress, she had done something so vicious. Seeing her father's heart soften, Mandy cried, even more hysterically. "Dad, believe me, sob. It was her." She pointed at Stella, the hatred in her eyes like a raging beast, screaming at the top of her lungs. "It was her. I didn't do that," she shrieked, defending herself. "I had a full-body massage. That's where the marks came from. It was you, Stella Gu. You have a sick mind. You knew I had cupping marks on my body, so you deliberately made me a spectacle. We're both women. How could you be so evil?" The crowd looked at Stella with suspicion. She seemed not to hear, merely playing with her black-painted fingernails. Her calm and aloof demeanor was a world apart from the hysterical Mandy on the floor. Seeing her attitude, Mr. Shun grew even angrier. He rushed over, his hands clenched into fists, veins bulging on the back. "Why did you do this? Why ruin Mandy's reputation in such a vicious way?" Stella finally looked up, meeting his angry eyes. Her voice was nonchalant, but every word was clear. "Mr. Shun, if you were a magistrate, I suppose even if your own family committed murder and arson, it would still be someone else's fault." Her words were both a mockery of his favoritism and a hint that Mandy was the real culprit. Mr. Shun was so choked with anger his face turned purple. He pointed at her and roared, "What a sharp-tongued girl. If it wasn't for you, would Mandy have fallen down the stairs on her own?" Stella had no desire to continue the argument, but since he was determined to court disaster, she would oblige him. She raised an eyebrow slowly, her voice lazy. "Yes, in front of everyone. I was walking in front, and she was behind me. How could she fall?" Her words reminded everyone. That's right, the person behind fell. How could the person in front be blamed? Seeing that he was losing the upper hand, Mr. Shun became furious and decided to use his power. "What are you waiting for? Throw this venomous, troublemaking girl out." "Mr. Shun, what a temper." A low voice, as sharp as a blade of ice, cut through the tense air. Everyone followed the sound and saw a tall, imposing man walking in from the entrance. A faint, cold smile played on his lips, and his slightly narrowed phoenix eyes held an innate sense of distance and indifference. His appearance was like a boulder thrown into a lake, instantly silencing all the commotion. It's the second young master of the Fu family," someone recognized him. Liu Fu's gaze swept over the crowd, finally bypassing Mr. Shun, who stood in front, and walked straight to Mrs. Shun. He nodded slightly. "Mrs. Shun, Grandma has been thinking of you lately. I hope you've been well. Mr. Shin was left standing there, feeling as if he had been slapped hard in the face, both embarrassed and terrified. For this unknown girl, Liu Fu had publicly humiliated him. Mrs. Shin had lived a long life and saw things clearly. She immediately understood Liu Fu's intentions. She forced herself to speak. Thank you for your concern. I'm fine. It's just that something happened, making a fool of myself in front of everyone. Leo's gaze fell coolly back on Mr. Shin's face. If this matter isn't cleared up today, it will indeed be a joke. Mr. Shin's heart sank to the bottom of his stomach. He knew he couldn't delay any longer. Just as he was about to order the servants to take his daughter away, Mandy screamed again. Stella Gu, I invited you here out of respect for Cynthia, but you did this to me. If you don't apologize today, I'm not leaving. Stella's dark eyes showed no emotion. She looked down at her, her voice filled with a dangerous tone. Miss Shen, think carefully before you speak. Was it really me who pushed you? That cold gaze seemed to be giving her one last chance to choose her words. But Mandy, blinded by jealousy and humiliation, gritted her teeth. You pushed me, and then you threatened me. Is there no justice in this world? Stella said no more. She turned, and under the astonished gazes of the crowd, she walked step by step to the center of the hall, under the crystal chandelier. She was as noble as a queen about to be crowned, and the entire room of guests had become her subjects. Then, she scanned the faces of those eager for the truth, and did something that left everyone speechless. She lifted the hem of her beautiful light blue dress, revealing her long, fair legs. Stella ignored the hysterical Mandy on the floor, her gaze going past her to the ashen-faced Mr. Shun. Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried clearly throughout the hall. If I can prove my innocence, shouldn't you and your daughter apologize to me, Mr. Shun? Her words reignited the conflict. Everyone's curiosity was piqued to the extreme. In the corner, Cynthia said worriedly to Julian Jiang, is my sister just bluffing? What if she fails? Julian's gaze, however, involuntarily fell on Liu Fu in the distance. He noticed that from start to finish, Leo's eyes had been locked on Stella. He looked away and said coolly to Cynthia, she brought it on herself. Seeing Mr. Shun's silence, Stella pressed on. Or perhaps, you and your daughter will apologize to me right now. Mr. Shin had no choice but to grit his teeth. How are you going to prove it? Stella slowly turned, revealing the back of her light blue dress trained to the crowd. Under the lights, everyone could see it clearly. On the white lining, there was a smudge of pink and blue, mixed with glitter. Look, isn't that eyeshadow? A girl who knew her makeup immediately recognized it. Oh my god, it's the fairy palette from Crimson, their bestseller. I use it too. In an instant, everyone's eyes darted back and forth between Mandy's tear-streaked, brightly colored makeup and the marks on Stella's dress. The answer was obvious. Stella then turned back, looking coldly at Mandy, as if she were an ant with nowhere to run. How did your eyeshadow get on the back of my dress train? She lifted her foot, showing her clean heel. Then, her gaze fell on Mandy's high heel that had fallen on the floor. The sole was also stained with sparkling powder. The crowd instantly understood. It was Mandy who had deliberately stepped on Stella's dress, but because of Stella's calm reaction, she had lost her footing and fallen, leaving evidence all over the place. Her scheme exposed, Mandy completely broke down. She pointed at Stella, screaming hysterically. It was you. You led me step by step into your trap. You venomous woman. You had to have a reason to walk into it, didn't you? Stella retorted coolly. Enough, Mrs. Shin slammed her cane on the floor and roared at her son and granddaughter. It has come to this, and you still dare to falsely accuse Miss Gu? Are you trying to kill me with anger? In the end, under Liu Fu's icy gaze and Mrs. Shin's fury, Mr. Shun and his daughter reluctantly apologized. Hearing their insincere, I'm sorry, Stella just laughed softly. Mr. Shun, your daughter's reputation is ruined because of her own actions. Don't try to pin this on me. I'm too delicate to carry such a heavy burden. With that, she turned to leave this disgusting place. Hey beautiful, don't go. A drunken young master staggered in front of her, blocking her path. Stella frowned. She could feel the drug, which had been temporarily suppressed by the needles, making a comeback. Her senses were amplified tenfold, making everything around her feel irritating. I'll say it one more time. Get out of my way. Her voice was already tinged with an uncontrollable coldness. Ooh, feisty. I like it, the man said, reaching out with a greasy hand to touch her face. I heard that Liu Fu is already on his deathbed. His lower body is useless. How can he make you happy? Unlike me. Thud. When his hand was just 3 centimeters from her cheek, Stella moved like a phantom. A dodge, a grab, a bend, and a clean, swift shoulder throw sent the man crashing onto the polished marble floor. You bitch, you dare to touch me? The man roared, splayed on the ground. Stella dusted off her hands, her eyes full of disgust, as if she had touched something filthy. You should thank me for sparing your pathetic life. Someone recognized the young rake as Ethan Wong. His uncle had dozens of desperate men under him, and no one ever dared to cross him. Ethan had never been so humiliated in his life. He scrambled up from the floor, his face contorted with rage, and lunged at Stella. You slut. It's your damn lucky day that I'm interested in you. Tonight, if I don't fuck you to death, my name isn't Ethan Wong. Stella's eyes glinted. As he approached, she delivered a quick, precise, and vicious kick, her toe landing squarely on his stomach. Ethan stumbled back several steps, clutching his stomach, the fire in his eyes burning hot enough to incinerate someone. Actually, your name should be Ethan the Turtle, Stella said coldly, drawing a wave of suppressed laughter from the crowd. In the corner, Sean asked worriedly, Mr. Fu, your wife. Leo's gaze never left Stella. He noticed that her cheeks were unusually flushed. He narrowed his eyes slightly and said, she can handle it. His intuition told him that this woman did not like others meddling in her affairs. Sure enough, Ethan, driven mad by the crowd's laughter, pulled out his phone and dialed a number, his tone impossibly arrogant. Big brother, get some guys over to the Shin house. If I don't kill this bitch today, I'm done in benching. Stella ignored the hysterical Mandy on the floor, her gaze going past her to the ashen-faced Mr. Shun. Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried clearly throughout the hall. If I can prove my innocence, shouldn't you and your daughter apologize to me, Mr. Shun? Her words reignited the conflict. Everyone's curiosity was piqued to the extreme. In the corner, Cynthia said worriedly to Julian Jiang, is my sister just bluffing? What if she fails? Julian's gaze, however, involuntarily fell on Leo Fu in the distance. He noticed that from start to finish, Leo's eyes had been locked on Stella. He looked away and said coolly to Cynthia, she brought it on herself. Seeing Mr. Shun's silence, Stella pressed on. Or perhaps, you and your daughter will apologize to me right now. Mr. Shun had no choice but to grit his teeth. How are you going to prove it? Stella slowly turned, revealing the back of her light blue dress trained to the crowd. Under the lights, everyone could see it clearly. On the white lining, there was a smudge of pink and blue, mixed with glitter. Look, isn't that eyeshadow? A girl who knew her makeup immediately recognized it. Oh my god, it's the fairy palette from Crimson, their bestseller. I use it too. In an instant, everyone's eyes darted back and forth between Mandy's tear-streaked, brightly colored makeup and the marks on Stella's dress. The answer was obvious. Stella then turned back, looking coldly at Mandy, as if she were an ant with nowhere to run. How did your eyeshadow get on the back of my dress train? She lifted her foot, showing her clean heel. Then, her gaze fell on Mandy's high heel that had fallen on the floor. The sole was also stained with sparkling powder. The crowd instantly understood. It was Mandy who had deliberately stepped on Stella's dress, but because of Stella's calm reaction, she had lost her footing and fallen, leaving evidence all over the place. Her scheme exposed, Mandy completely broke down. She pointed at Stella, screaming hysterically. It was you. You led me step by step into your trap. You venomous woman. You had to have a reason to walk into it, didn't you? Stella retorted coolly. Enough, Mrs. Shin slammed her cane on the floor and roared at her son and granddaughter. It has come to this, and you still dare to falsely accuse Miss Gu? Are you trying to kill me with anger? In the end, under Leo Fu's icy gaze and Mrs. Shin's fury, Mr. Shun and his daughter reluctantly apologized. Hearing their insincere, I'm sorry, Stella just laughed softly. Mr. Shun, your daughter's reputation is ruined because of her own actions. Don't try to pin this on me. I'm too delicate to carry such a heavy burden. With that, she turned to leave this disgusting place. Hey beautiful, don't go. A drunken young master staggered in front of her, blocking her path. Stella frowned. She could feel the drug, which had been temporarily suppressed by the needles, making a comeback. Her senses were amplified tenfold, making everything around her feel irritating. I'll say it one more time. Get out of my way. Her voice was already tinged with an uncontrollable coldness. Ooh, feisty. I like it, the man said, reaching out with a greasy hand to touch her face. I heard that Leo Fu is already on his deathbed. His lower body is useless. How can he make you happy? Unlike me. Thud. When his hand was just 3 centimeters from her cheek, Stella moved like a phantom. A dodge, a grab, a bend, and a clean, swift shoulder throw sent the man crashing onto the polished marble floor. You bitch, you dare to touch me? The man roared, splayed on the ground. Stella dusted off her hands, her eyes full of disgust, as if she had touched something filthy. You should thank me for sparing your pathetic life. Someone recognized the young rake as Ethan Wong. His uncle had dozens of desperate men under him, and no one ever dared to cross him. Ethan had never been so humiliated in his life. He scrambled up from the floor, his face contorted with rage, and lunged at Stella. You slut. It's your damn lucky day that I'm interested in you. Tonight, if I don't fuck you to death, my name isn't Ethan Wong. Stella's eyes glinted. As he approached, she delivered a quick, precise, and vicious kick, her toe landing squarely on his stomach. Ethan stumbled back several steps, clutching his stomach, the fire in his eyes burning hot enough to incinerate someone. Actually, your name should be Ethan the Turtle, Stella said coldly, drawing a wave of suppressed laughter from the crowd. Ethan, driven mad by the crowd's laughter, pulled out his phone and dialed a number, his tone impossibly arrogant. "Big brother, get some guys over to the Shin house. If I don't kill this bitch today, I'm done in benching." After hanging up, Mrs. Shin was frantic, like an ant on a hot pan, terrified a life would be lost. But Stella just raised an eyebrow coolly and said to Ethan, word by word, "It's a deal. If you don't kill me today, you will get out of benching and never return." Whoa, what an arrogant tone. Everyone looked at her in disbelief. Ethan laughed, enraged. "Are you out of your mind? You want me to get out of benching?" "I'm just repeating what you said." Stella's voice was heavy. She forced her breathing to remain steady, not letting anyone see her body's unusual state. Soon, 5 or 6 hulking men, all over 6 feet tall, rushed in. Leading them was a burly man with a cigar, Ethan Wong's top enforcer, Mark Chun. He scanned the crowd and bellowed, "Who the hell dared to mess with my young master? Hurry up and get your ass out here." "That would be me," Stella's unhurried voice sounded, without a trace of fear. Mark looked at the slender young woman before him with disdain. "Little girl, I don't usually get my hands dirty. Those who have fought me are either crippled or dead. If you apologize to the young master and go with him quietly, we can forget this ever happened." Stella scoffed. "Impossible. You two should be the ones apologizing to me." Mark felt his authority had been challenged. He sneered, clenching his fists. "I've never seen a woman as clueless as you. You dare to challenge me?" Stella couldn't be bothered with any more talk. She lifted the tablecloth from a nearby table and tied it neatly around her waist to avoid any wardrobe malfunctions. Her jade-like fingers flexed, and her eyes, now housing a waking tiger, were full of deadly intent. "You overestimate yourself. I'll make you beg the young master to sleep with you," Mark roared, his vicious fist whistling through the air towards Stella's face. The crowd shut their eyes in terror. However, the expected scream never came. They opened their eyes to an even more shocking scene. Stella, the petite girl, had caught Mark's iron fist with her bare hands. Her eyes turned cold, her 5 fingers tightened, a blend of softness and strength. She pushed against his chest, and then twisted sharply in the opposite direction. Mark stared at her in shock. He couldn't understand how this woman could be so strong. Mark twisted his body to dodge her counterattack and snorted. "I wasn't even using my full strength. This time, you can get ready to kneel and beg for mercy. The only one kneeling will be you." Stella's voice was filled with a thick, killing intent as she lunged at him like a panther. Her movements were fast, precise, and ruthless. She pinned Mark's hand and used the opportunity to block his right leg. In one round, Stella had stepped on Mark's leg. Arg! A blood-curdling scream echoed through the banquet hall. Mark was half kneeling on the ground, veins popping on his forehead, his face pale. His right calf was twisted at a grotesque angle. Stella had snapped it. The entire hall fell silent. Everyone was too stunned by the scene to speak. Cynthia was so scared her face turned white, her breathing ragged. Stella slowly stood up straight, her face devoid of emotion. She looked at the green-faced, terrified Ethan Wong and walked towards him step by step, her cold voice like a queen's judgment. "Get over here and apologize to me." In an instant, the eyes of the pampered socialites in the hall lit up with an unprecedented glow. They watched Stella, her petite frame erupting with astonishing power, and felt their own blood begin to stir. A few excited gasps and scattered applause broke the dead silence. "Oh my God, she's incredible. She could be my husband." Mark Chin struggled to get up, but Stella was ruthless. A precise kick to his knee forced him to his other knee with a heavy thud. This time, his remaining good leg was dislocated, and he collapsed into a heap on the floor, a pathetic mess left with nothing but pained groans. Victory was swift and decisive, but Stella's body was sounding an alarm. The intense exertion had accelerated the effects of the drug. A scorching undercurrent raged through her veins, and she could only muster all her strength to maintain a calm facade. Ethan Wong's mind was buzzing. He was completely stunned. Mark Chun, one of his uncle's best fighters, had been disabled by this slip of a girl in a matter of seconds. Humiliation washed over Mark. He lay on the floor, in agony and fury, gasping for breath as he threatened, "Do you have any idea who you've just crossed? Mr. Wong will never let you get away with this." Beneath her slightly disheveled hair, Stella's eyes were startlingly bright. She curved her eyebrows into a smile, her voice lazy yet sharp as a razor. "Since ancient times, the victor has been the king. You lost, and now you're using someone else's name to prop yourself up. I wonder if your Mr. Wong would forgive you if he knew." With that, she ignored the useless man on the floor and turned to the still-dazed Ethan. "What are you waiting for? Thinking about how to apologize?" Ethan swallowed hard, instinctively avoiding her eyes, which were filled with a murderous aura. "Are you going to kneel and apologize, or are you going to crawl between my legs, Stella threw his earlier vulgar words right back at him. Ethan's face turned livid. He had lost all face today. He roared, putting on a brave front. "Apologize? Never. I'm going to have my uncle send mercenaries to kill you. Do you dare to wait here?" "Why wouldn't I? Stella's voice remained steady, though only she knew how fiercely the fire inside her was burning. Forget your uncle. Even 10 of him might not be a match for me. Go on, call him. If I don't beat you into submission today, my name isn't Stella Gu. Just then, Liu Fu's deep, emotionless voice cut in. Are you done playing? Stella looked over. He was walking towards her with steady steps, carrying an air of sharp authority. She smiled faintly. Just about. Leo didn't look at her. He stopped in front of Mark Chun, looking down at him, his voice growing deeper. As it happens, I have a score to settle with this person. His gaze finally landed on Ethan Wong. Sean immediately stepped forward. Leo gave a cruel order. Cut out his tongue. What? Ethan nearly fainted from shock. Sean was also stunned. Now he understood why Leo had asked him if he brought a knife. Leo glanced at Stella and added slowly. Insulting my companion first, and then me. This tongue is useless. Ethan's courage shattered. He finally remembered the drunken nonsense he had spouted earlier. He wasted no more time, fumbling for his phone and dialing his uncle, Victor Wong. The call connected quickly, and Ethan, as if regaining his dignity, wailed, Uncle, Leo Fu is going to cut out my tongue for some nobody. You have to come and deal with them. There was a moment of silence on the other end, then a steady male voice replied. Are you sure it's Stella Gu? Yes, it's Stella Gu from Binching. You fool. Victor Wong's roar of fury made everyone flinch, even through the phone. Know her is an understatement. Victor's voice was a mix of excitement and lingering fear. She saved my life. If she hadn't saved me back then, I would have died in the mountains and become a pile of mud. You imbecile, you've caused a huge disaster. Put her on the phone. The hall erupted. Stella Gu was Victor Wong's savior? This was earth-shattering news. The most incredulous was Cynthia, who clenched her fists, her eyes filled with thick jealousy and resentment. Julian Zhang's heart also stirred. Such an incredible woman. Had he truly misunderstood her? But Cynthia whispered in Julian's ear, Julian, her medical skills are so amazing, she could save Victor Wong, but she refused to treat Tiffany's face. Why is that? The small flame of doubt that had just ignited in Julian's heart was instantly extinguished. Stella took the phone and put it on speaker. Victor Wong's incredibly respectful voice came through. Miss Gu, it's been 10 years. I will never forget your kindness for as long as I live. That brat has offended you. Do with him as you please, as long as it appeases your anger. Stella just felt more and more uncomfortable, as if she were being devoured by countless ants. She wanted to end this quickly. She replied coolly, Mr. Wong, it was a small gesture back then. I've almost forgotten about it. You should let it go too. Her words both gave him face and made her own stance clear. The past was the past, but today's debt must be paid. On the other end of the line, after hearing his nephew's final plea, Victor Wong simply said, Over the years, I believe my conscience is clear, and decisively hung up. Ethan was struck by lightning, his pillar of support completely gone. Stella looked at him. Apologize. Ethan knew the battle was lost. To save his tongue, he looked up and started acting. It was my mistake. I'm sorry, I know I was wrong. Even as her consciousness began to fade, Stella could see he wasn't sincere. Leo also noticed her strange state. He frowned and spoke coldly. It's too late for apologies now. He glanced at Sean. Sean immediately stepped forward, grabbing Ethan's jaw and forcing his mouth open. In the dim yellow light, a cold glint of steel flashed. The hand rose, and the knife fell. A twisted, gurgling scream tore from Ethan's throat as blood gushed from his mouth like a spring, staining the marble floor in front of him. Ethan whimpered and collapsed into a pool of his own blood. In that moment, he finally understood why no one dared to cross Leo Fu, even though he was just a sick man, because he always kept his word. The hall was silent, the crowd frozen in fear. They finally understood. It wasn't that Leo hadn't wanted to intervene. He knew her capabilities and had let her have her moment. But when he struck, it was a final, fatal blow, leaving no room for negotiation.